powerful messages, along with poems, singing, and just a general overall participation in what's been, I think, a good celebration. We had, well, I'll go in the order that it was supposed to be. By oversight, we switched things around, so I'm going over it, I guess, from Catherine. Gloria just talked about why we ought to remember Black history. Pretty much it was so that we can honor those who went before us and championed our freedom, so that history will not repeat itself, and so that the next generation can build upon what was already established, freedom. And John talked about the racial motivation behind the oppression that we had as slaves in our country. You know, probably some of you knew about this. Right around the turn of the 20th century, 1903, a man by the name of W.S. Armistead wrote a book called The Negro is a Man. He wrote that in response to a book that had come out just a few years ago by some college professor, which he titled The Negro is a Beast. And he set about to prove from Scripture why that was the case. And so Armistead's book, The Negro is a Man, was a direct rebuttal of that book. Now, John talked about the racial motivation behind slavery in our country, the African American suffering, the Black experience. But we don't read much about that specifically in the Bible. Not that the Bible negates that experience, no. All kinds of experiences are not mentioned in the Bible, but God was involved and was aware. But we do read about Israel's oppression. And the hope that we can get from reading about Israel's oppression in Egypt was that God is a deliverer. And I think that's part of what was made manifest to our people throughout the time when our ancestors were going through it, under the whip, under the slavery. So we have a combination in those two messages of remembrance and of hope. It was also mentioned by both messages, it was alluded to, it certainly was alluded to, not specifically, explicitly mentioned, that there's a spiritual aspect to this too. All of us have been enslaved. So when we look at the physical suffering that our African Americans suffered, they look beyond that to the hope that Scripture gave them. And that's something that all men and women, whatever race you are, should recognize. Because in our country, we have oppressors from the whites, okay? But the whole world is oppressed by the devil. The whole world is being enslaved by Satan. Satan seeks to oppress us, and it's not only to take away our physical freedom, as it were. He wants to take away our spiritual destiny. And that's why we need to recognize that there is hope. And we need to learn that that's who it comes from. Our forefathers understood who it came from. It came from Jesus. Now, Gloria mentioned also about the church and its role and how we need to build on the steps that were already taken. And I just want to talk about our current generations. Our generation, the baby boomers and those immediately after that, to today's generation. Okay? Because it's important that both of those elements, remembrance and hope, take place in both. All those need to take place in both of those need to take place in all the generations today. You see, those of us who kind of were part of it, I mean, I'm old enough to remember Martin Luther King when he was alive, okay? And that speaks to most of the adults, all adults in the room. But many of our kids today, there's a mention of it. They may see a little bit about it on TV, but I wonder how much similar their experience today is as it was mine. When I grew up in school, and we were studying all kinds of history, right? We studied world history, and we studied history of the United States. I specifically remember I didn't care much about history, but when I started looking at the history books, I probably was in 6th or 7th grade, and I noticed as it went through the founding of our country till at the time, which was 60s or 70s, there was only 2 paragraphs mentioned about black history. 2 paragraphs mentioned about it. Something about Martin Luther King, and that was it. My point is that we need to know this and we need to teach it because there are those who do wish to suppress it. Someone mentioned, I think it was Juanita mentioned in her prayer, about a man who invented the life alert. Now, it was a surprise to me years ago when I recognized how much blacks have invented and how it's impacted technology and things around the world. People are benefiting from it. So, but that's not always talked about. That's not always it. But we do need to delve into that. What's my point? My point is that we need to make a concerted effort to learn for the purpose of being able to remember, for the purpose of being able to put together so that we can have hope for the future. If we don't know what our foundation is, how do we build on it? How do you build on something you don't know is a foundation? Spiritually, it applies even more. The devil, as I mentioned, wants to suppress us. He wants to oppress us, and he wants to hold back the gospel message. Even as I didn't see much of U.S. Slavery in U.S. history books, the devil doesn't want the world to know the gospel. The devil wants to keep the world in the dark. So here we go out as lights to preach the gospel message, and we ought to tell, because what does the scripture say? How will they know? Except they hear. How do they hear unless it's being taught? And that's our job. So that the next foundation, the next generation can have that foundation so that they can grow and so that they can build. Because again, history is still being made. We're talking about, like John said, 150-some years ago. But history today is still being made. Next year, this year will be history. All right? So let's do our part as those who have gone through oppression and have seen it, and maybe some of us still experience it. I know it still happens. Some of us can still tell stories about institutionalized racism. But we still, like Virginia Slim's commercial, we've come a long way, baby. We have. We have. Back in the day, when Greenwood, as Gloria was mentioning, they wouldn't have elected a black president. So we've come a long way. But our long way doesn't stop with freedom here. Our long way stops when we recognize the true salvation and freedom that we have in Christ, and we embrace it and we share it. So let this, what we've heard today, be an inspiration. I know I'm inspired by the messages. Let's let that be an inspiration to all of us to remember, well, first of all, to learn and to remember and to have hope for the future. And teach it, spread it to others, like Jesus said as part of the Great Commission.